was late on an autumn evening in 2024, the kind of night when the wind howled through the trees and the world outside felt like a distant memory. Olivia sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, scrolling through her phone, trying to escape the unease that had settled in her chest. Something about tonight felt wrong. A chill she couldn't shake despite the warmth inside. That's when she saw it. An envelope slipped under her door. Strange. She hadn't heard anyone enter. No knock, no footsteps, just the envelope, pristine but utterly out of place. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. The heavy weight of the wax seal made her wonder if she should open it, but curiosity tugged at her. The address was unfamiliar. No return address, just a name, Oak Ridge Manor. The elegant script was unsettling in its beauty, too perfect, too old-fashioned. She cracked the seal and pulled out a single card. The message was simple, but sent a jolt through her chest. You are invited to Oak Ridge Manor. You must arrive before dusk. All your questions will be answered. Nothing else. Not a hint about who sent it or why she was chosen. But something about the letter sent a chill down her spine. The name Oak Ridge Manor. She had heard whispers of it, a crumbling estate outside the city, abandoned for years, surrounded by rumors of darkness, death, and a curse that could never be broken. The invitation didn't feel like a coincidence. She had always prided herself on being logical, rational. Nothing could truly be haunted, right? Ghosts weren't real, or so she had always believed. But tonight, something inside her told her she had to go. Maybe it was the weight of curiosity, or maybe the strange sense of dread that seemed to cling to her as she glanced at the words. Either way, she grabbed her camera, notebook, and set out. The drive was long. The further she went, the less familiar the roads became. The trees seemed to close in on her, their bare branches clawing at the night sky. The wind whispered through them, as though the forest itself was trying to warn her, trying to stop her. The air grew cold, colder than it should have been for a late September evening. And then, there it was. Oak Ridge Manor. It loomed in the distance, its silhouette against the dark sky like something straight out of a nightmare. Tall, imposing, the mansion seemed to swallow the light around it, standing alone on the edge of a forgotten road. It didn't look abandoned. It looked alive. Alive in a way that made her skin crawl. As Olivia stepped out of her car, the chill of the night wrapped around her. The gate was open, though she was certain she hadn't seen anyone near it. A strange, unsettling sound, a low creaking like the moan of an old ship on the water, rose from the manor as she approached. The door stood ajar, inviting her in with an eerie silence. The moment she crossed the threshold, it was as though the house noticed her. The temperature dropped sharply, and the darkness seemed to press in closer. A feeling of wrongness wrapped around her like a suffocating fog. "Hello?" she called into the vast emptiness. Her voice echoed back in a hollow way, as though the walls themselves were listening. Then she saw him. A tall, thin man stepped from the shadows, his clothes dark and old-fashioned, his face pale, his eyes unnervingly wide. He didn't smile. He didn't even speak. He only nodded as though he had been waiting for her. "Welcome, Ms. Olivia." His voice was smooth, too smooth, almost robotic. "You've come." His words felt like a trap, his eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her blood run cold. I don't understand. What is this place?" she asked, forcing herself to speak, though her voice quivered. Her heart pounded louder with every passing second. "You will understand soon enough." he said, turning without another word and walking down a narrow, dimly lit hallway. His footsteps echoed on the wooden floorboards, distant and hollow. Olivia hesitated but followed. Something told her she was not going to find answers easily, if at all. The house itself felt like a living, breathing entity, its walls whispering in a language she couldn't understand, the shadows shifting unnaturally in the corners of her vision. The man led her to a room that felt colder than the rest, the air heavy, thick with an invisible pressure. And there it was, the mirror, hanging in the center of the room, large and ancient, its surface dark and still as death. Olivia felt a coldness in her chest as she walked closer. The reflection, however, was wrong. Her own image stood there staring back at her. But beside her was a figure, a woman dressed in an elegant gown, her face pale and gaunt, eyes dark and lifeless. A chill gripped Olivia's heart as she took a step back. But the woman in the mirror did not move. Olivia turned around, searching the room for an explanation. But the man was gone. Only the mirror remained, its surface now rippling like water, and in its depths Olivia could see the woman's lips move, forming words, but no sound escaped. The room grew colder, her breath fogging in the air. Olivia's instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet felt glued to the floor. She could not tear her eyes away from the mirror. The woman's reflection was becoming clearer, closer. Olivia could see the sadness in her dark eyes, but there was something else, something far more sinister. The woman stepped closer in the mirror. A loud bang made Olivia jump. The door slammed shut behind her, trapping her in the room. Panic surged through her as she turned, looking for an escape. The mirror wasn't just a reflection anymore. There was something in it, something alive. She backed away, her body trembling, but the air around her was thick, too thick to breathe. The woman in the mirror reached out a hand, her fingers pressing against the glass, her eyes pleading for Olivia to come closer. But then, the reflection twisted, her face contorting in an expression of pure rage. The woman's lips parted, her mouth opening unnaturally wide. And she screamed. The sound was deafening. It was a scream that echoed from the mirror and filled Olivia's head. The walls seemed to close in, the house groaning and shifting as though it were waking from a long sleep. Then, the mirror shattered. Shards of glass rained down around Olivia, and in that instant the temperature dropped to an unimaginable cold. She staggered back, falling to the floor as the room seemed to spin. For a moment everything went silent, but when she looked up, the woman was no longer in the mirror. She was standing right in front of Olivia, her hand cold as ice gripping Olivia's wrist. Olivia tried to scream, but no sound escaped. The woman's eyes were hollow, her expression blank, but Olivia could feel the weight of centuries of rage and sorrow behind them. "You've awakened me," the woman whispered, her voice like 1,000 whispers wrapped in one. "Now, you will never leave." Olivia tried to pull away, but it was too late. The world around her began to fade, the edges of reality blurring and twisting. The next thing Olivia knew, she was standing outside the manor, the sun rising slowly in the distance. The air was still, the birds silent, as if the world itself held its breath. She turned back toward Oakridge Manor. The front door was wide open, the windows dark, the mansion still standing as though nothing had ever happened. But as she looked up at one of the windows, she saw her, the woman, standing there, watching her with those empty eyes. Olivia's blood ran cold as she realized the truth. She hadn't escaped. The woman was still inside, and soon she would come for Olivia.